This is the Dover Download Podcast. My name is Christopher Parker, and for the past 25 years, I've had the pleasure of working with, learning from, and talking to a variety of volunteer, staff, and community members. This podcast explores conversations, activities, and a variety of policies and programs which exist here in Dover to improve the community in one way or another. For at least the majority of the 27 years I've been here with the city, one focal point is, hey, we should get the Waterfront developed. Today, we're going to have a follow-up to our earlier conversation we had with Jamie Stevens, who's the city's project manager for that development, and Rob Simmons, who is the private developer. They gave an update on progress being made earlier this year. Today, we're going to meet with Dana Lynch, a longtime advocate and member of the Kachiko Waterfront Development Advisory Committee, as well as Jamie, on what's going on with the waterfront today. Gentlemen, how are you?
We're doing great. Well, Chris, thank you.
So, Dana, for the uneducated, how long have you been working on this project?
We made our first presentation to the Dover City Council in November of 1990. So we'll round that up to 34 years. It actually started about 6 months prior to that when the task force was created by the city, and with the assistance of the Chamber of Commerce. A group of people were selected to brainstorm ideas of how we could redevelop the city-owned property.
How close do you think that vision 34 years ago, and granted, it was real concept. I mean, it was not hard and fast engineering. It was, wouldn't it be nice? But do you see, when you look at the site today, do you see that vision, or do you see the evolution of that vision?
To be perfectly honest with you, I kind of see a combination of the two. A lot of the components of the vision from 1990 we've still held true to. I think one of the overriding goals at the time was to, and you've heard this, I'm sure, before, is we were trying to create a place where people could live, work, and play. So the play component we are carrying forward in the park. Yep. The work is the office space that may be available in the lower levels. And obviously there are going to be apartments there and condominiums for people to live in. So that overriding component, I guess, has been carried forward. A lot of the pieces have moved around and shifted around, but the ideas, you can see ghosts of the ideas in the new development. We've gone from a cartoon to a blueprint, basically.
Right. I think the other thing we've gone through is wouldn't it be nice to, here's what we can do, to, okay, let's get it done.
Yeah.
You know, there was an element of wouldn't it be nice that really lasted from maybe 1990 to 2010. You know, that sort of the two charrettes, the initial rollout that brought in the Dickinson group, it was a wouldn't it be nice. And then for maybe 7-8 years, we had okay, here's the reality of some of those costs. Here's a reality of what we know is in the ground. Here's a reality of what we hope is not in the ground. And now we are in the process of saying we've got a dedicated partner. We've got dedicated resources of the cities to making that a reality. And I like to say that Jamie calls me maybe every other day, if not daily, and says, hey, guess what we found? And some of it's cool. Some of it foundation-wise, you know, the real history of the area. Some of it's not so cool when the soils that are anticipated to be there are not there, or were not anticipated to be there are there. It's a real opportunity to learn about our community and see this project evolve.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think if anything, my takeaway of my years of involvement is I learned a lot about the community and what its goals and intentions were. I also learned a little bit about myself and how to be patient, and also at the same time to be very open-minded to ideas, fresh ideas or odd ideas. Sometimes there's some real oddballs that come up, but you know, they've got a measure of possibility in them. But I think the real turning point came when the city realized that it needed to be a partner in this project and needed to participate in some level, and the city council and City Hall in general was willing to do that. That was a huge turning point.
Yeah, I look at, in my mind, there are two pivot points. The first is in 2007 when it was decided that an independent body should oversee the waterfront and the real creation and solidification of the development being in the hands of Quiddick. And then the second being if I was a parent, I'd say it might be the come to Jesus moment with my child. But I think the post-recession, pre-selection of Cathartis to be our partner, the sort of reality you speak of the city has a commitment here. The city owns the land, and if we want to see it developed in the vision that Quiddick and others have propagated, then we're going to have to roll up our sleeves, find some money, and make it work. And the creation of the waterfront TIF and some of those other big decisions that the policymakers had to get behind and had to solidify our commitment as a community to make this project happen.
Yeah.
And that continues, I think, with the idea that first Steve Bird, who was a longtime employee and the staff assigned really is his sole role for a long time to making the planning and permitting happen, and then morphing that into Jamie being assigned to be the eyes on the site on a daily basis.
Right.
We need those resources. We need Jamie's expertise down there to say, whoa, Chris, guess what we just found?
Yeah.
Because if it was me, I'd be like, hey, look, it's soil. So,
or identifying areas where we can save here and there. There are always opportunities. Coming from the engineering field, I realize the blueprints are not the end all. They are strictly that, blueprints. They're not as-built. So in the process of construction, there are always needs. There's always a need for an adjustment of some sort. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small. And it's good to have somebody on the ground who can identify those needs, those opportunities to save, and to keep the project moving forward.
So Jamie, how's it going keeping the project moving forward?
The project is moving forward. Chris, the biggest aspect visually for the listener or the resident would be the elevator shafts that now exist on the site in preparation for the building of two of the larger buildings on site. All the public infrastructure, with the exception of what's needed to service our sole single service user in the prior jail site, those are yet to be completed, but we've installed all infrastructure within the public right-of-way, and most recently, newly named Payne Street. The majority of the in-road subsurface improvements have been completed. The listener will notice that there is now pavement on a portion of Payne Street. There's pavement in half of the private parcel, which will become a parking. And we continue to make improvements. And touching on one of Dana's points, the development of this project and bringing it to its fruition, it's important to have someone with a construction experience involved, because I'm constantly identifying conflicts and ways to resolve, and then I present to you all, and we work through them, because just because it was designed or intended that way doesn't mean it works that way in the field. So it's been a navigational process for sure.
Yeah, I think that you're always going to have to keep the vision in mind, the concepts in mind, but then when the shovel hits the dirt, you are going to have to be able to pivot, because nothing ever is exactly what the concept showed when the final CO is issued. And I think that your perspective on that has been really good. I'm curious, your first thought when you saw the pavement go down, the binder course go down on the roadway network, and actually defining the roadway network, separating it from the dirt piles around it.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, Chris, this project has been talked about most of my adult life, most of my adolescent life. And to have a part in pushing this forward in a positive manner, it's a great thing. And I think it's going to be a great thing for the city and the residents. And with the addition of the public park, which is also a component of my work, I think it's going to be an extreme benefit to the general population. And it's kind of neat to see it actually come to fruition after being talked about for so long.
One thing I'm looking forward to, and I'm curious for both of your thoughts on this, when we can open the roadways up, and granted it's probably a year and a half away when it's fully open, but when we can open things up and people actually can be on the roads, on the sidewalks, on the park, it strikes me that you see things at a plan view, a blueprint view, and the site looks big. But the two times I've walked and driven down there with you, Jamie, and once with Quiddick, I think, it's actually a pretty tight site. That the placement of where we want the pavilion to go, where the boathouse might go, where the commercial buildings are going. It's your neighbors are right there, and it's a great example of compact design. But in my mind, it really showcases how things look one way on paper and then another way in reality.
Yeah, there's a certain realistic component to building and design, Chris, and then you said it best. As things come to fruition, you see that space. It's like a canvas for an artist. You see the space start to populate, and you realize that, whoa, this isn't as large of a site as it looked when there's nothing and it's flat. As things pop up and go vertically, it does. It does. The space gets utilized, and it has a purpose.
Dana, what's your thought? How do you see that?
Well, it's very similar to what Jamie just mentioned. I liken it to building a house. When you see the foundation in the ground, you think, oh my gosh, this house is so much bigger than I expected. And then the walls start to go up, and the rooms aren't as big as I thought they'd be. And then the sheetrock goes up, and well, they're big enough. And your perspective on the space available changes, even though physically it has not changed. But I think we've achieved a goal, really, when we talk about the compact nature of the site. That's what waterfronts are supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Look at Newport, look at Newburyport, look at so many of Mystic. Our predecessors did not create huge parking lots. They did not create huge expanses. Waterfront property was a valuable asset, as it is still today. So you maximize the use of it. In their particular cases, it might be fishing or the whaling industry in New Bedford. But historically, waterfronts are very compact, intense areas. We aren't going to be quite that intense with the park, but the backdrop to the park will be a very vital and active area, which is, I think, what we all want to be part of our downtown.
Jamie, about how many people are actively working on the site today?
It fluctuates a great deal, Chris. It kind of comes in phases. With the 5 foundations complete that are now Cathartis property, the next phase of trades comes in. On a regular basis, I expect to see 100 bodies, and as we start going vertical towards the end of this month, or as Cathartis starts going vertical the end of this month, the trades will increase. Plumbers, electricians, you're going to have construction people down there, and I see it escalating into the hundreds, 300-400 individuals a day, and it's really going to make things accelerate quickly.
The long term, we're looking to wrap up spring of 26. Over the next winter, 6 months, what are the major things that you expect the public to see as they drive by?
So visually, the public obviously is going to see the vertical development being the biggest wow factor. In cohesion with that, we continue to work on our public infrastructure, being the building of the park, the building of the pavilion building, in cohesion with what is happening on the private parcels. So I guess it's sort of, the analogy I'd like to use is sort of a beehive. There's a lot of worker bees and a lot of action and a lot of components that are happening all together at once in unison. So I think the biggest visual bang for the buck is going to be once the first 2 buildings start to go vertical the end of this month. The general public will see a great deal of visual impact as a result of that.
Dana, what to you is the next milestone that as a longtime advocate you've been looking forward to seeing? Is it the steel coming out of the ground? Is it some other component?
Well, I think the bigger picture, I'm really excited about the park, to tell you the truth. To me, that is the reward for the Dover public, the community. I am excited that this opportunity of having this waterfront area where people can gather, stroll around, enjoy a summer day or whatever they wish to do. It's kind of to me, that's the icing on the cake. The rest of the development will take care of itself. And as the area becomes completed, to back up a step, when the roads are finally open to the public, there's going to be a traffic jam down there because everybody's going to want to see this. And then everybody's going to tell their neighbor or their friends from other parts of the state or even other parts of the region, you got to come to Dover to see this. I think that's pretty exciting. And it'll add a lot to the vitality, which already we have a vital downtown, but this will just add to it.
One thing that I think is important to note, and it's due to the work that you, Jack Meddy, Jack Buckley, Norm Picasa, and others on Quiddick, and I don't mean to leave anyone out, but the 4 of you, I think, are the longest serving Buckley no longer a member of the committee, but certainly an important instigator, as it were, champion early on. But one of the things that I think was always part of from the concept to the current vision is that we're not replacing downtown. It is an extension of downtown. It is meant to flow as if you're just seeing downtown from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And Jamie, I think that gets to some of the infrastructure work we're doing on making sure that the lights match, making sure the benches match, making sure that there are amenities that carry forward. And one of the things I know you've been working hard on is trying to work with Eversource on tying in the electricity so we can bring more of the downtown underground as part of this. All of the waterfront should be subgrade for its utilities. But I think that sort of linchpin of connectivity is really important here.
I agree.
I agree too. I think this is an expansion of our downtown, and again, the vitality that it will create and the healthy business environment that it'll create will be of benefit to the community for a long time.
Well, since you both agreed with me, I'm going to definitely have you back.
Okay.
It's important to agree with the host, I think. So as we wrap up, Dana, what are you looking forward to when we have you back in 6 months to talk about what's occurred over the winter? Are there elements that you're hoping to be able to say, we've got this in the ground?
Well, yeah, as Jamie mentioned, to see the park come together, I'm hoping that by then a majority, not all, but a majority of the Cathartist structures will be nearly enclosed and interior work will be starting, and it will just be growing as it needs to grow to end up with a quality product at the end. I don't have any set goals on it. I know how construction can evolve and fits and starts and change direction occasionally, but I'm very optimistic that it will be coming together very, very nicely.
And Jamie, am I correct in that we had the groundbreaking, we had the initial dirt flying, as it were, and then we have the base pavement down. It's another sort of milestone. But we're kind of in that nuts and bolts phase of construction where maybe people aren't going to see so much because it sort of blends. And then all of a sudden, as you said, the steel will come up, and then the exterior cladding will go on those buildings. And I suspect that over the next year, it's going to be a lot of day-to-day you don't notice things, but then 6 months later you look back and you're like, oh, last time I was down there, I saw elevator shafts, and now...
Yeah, so Chris, the majority of my work over the past year is actually beneath the ground. The general public may have seen equipment moving, but they never really saw a product develop out of that because it's all beneath the pavement. And now that the private partner, Cathartist, is starting to go vertical, and yet to come, the ground improvements and preparations for the pavilion building itself have been completed. We're going to move forward with a foundation on that building here shortly as well. So like I had mentioned previously, the general public is going to notice a lot of changes to that landscape over the next year, a lot. I think it's going to be a wow factor. And to be able to see progress but see a product, because all of my progress to date is not visually noticeable.
Yeah.
We know what's been done, but the general public does not. There's a lot of work that's been happened beneath the surface of the ground, and as you mentioned, we had that milestone of having the base pavement down, and it will continue to make those milestones. There's a lot of progress, curbing, sidewalks, and stuff that'll all be visually appealing and be noticeable to the general public. But the biggest bang for the buck is the vertical development, and that's where the biggest change visually is going to happen for the general public.
Well, and I think to that point, both of you can correct me when I'm wrong, but the sidewalks, the street trees, the curbing, that's actually all finished stuff at the end. Mm-hmm. A lot of what people will see is, oh, look at that, is something that if we put it in now would probably get ruined. The viability of it's not good. So that's the sort of thing, if people are waiting for those street trees or the park vegetation, it's coming. But
so that's a very important aspect to mention, Chris, because with the segmentation of the progress now, we're obviously not going to put curbing and sidewalk in when someone's trying to build a building right next to it. So it relies on that unison construction progress between our private partner and our public stuff. So as the development goes vertical, as things get weather tight, then we'll have the opportunity to start picking away at the elements that you just mentioned. Because as you mentioned, it doesn't do a lot of good to install something brand new and then do construction all over it. So that's part of the coordination that I work on day to day.
Just to go back to my analogy with the building a house, I mean, we're basically in the phase now where the walls are up in the house, and what you see is plumbers and electricians pulling wire and doing things like that. And then all of a sudden, that goes on and on for a while until sheetrock goes up, and then the kitchen cabinets arrive. And then it starts to look like a kitchen, or it starts to look like whatever room we're speaking of. That's that milestone where people will really start to notice.
And then your wife says, we went with that vanity? I don't remember going with that mirror. Didn't we choose?
Yep.
Yep. And that'll be when Jamie holds up a thing and says, no, this is what you chose. And I said, oh,
That's why Jamie's in charge down there.
right. I appreciate you both coming in and sharing an update with the listener. Jamie, you are in the thick of it, and I very much value the perspective you bring, both of these updates and the day-to-day activities and supervision you're providing. And Danny, your passion for this project is just unbelievable. I've been fortunate to know you for a long time, and seeing this come to fruition, I'm very proud for you of all the work that you and others have done to get us to the point we're at. And I look forward to wrapping this project up in 2 years.
Thank you, Chris. I will come back.
Good. Good. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Dover has a wealth of history in its over 400 years of existence. Coming up, Mike Gillis is going to share some of that history with us.
On October 25, 1956, Meyer Siegel was leaving Stratford County Superior Court, where he had just spent hours defending his business, Siegel's Store, and the right to open for business on Sundays. 2 weeks earlier, Siegel was served a restraining order that forced him to close his Central Avenue store on Sundays. The restraining order was the result of a suit filed in Superior Court by the Dover Retail Merchants Association and 17 other local businesses, who maintained Siegel's was in violation of the state's blue laws, which prohibited stores from doing business on Sundays. The suit maintained Dover businesses suffered the loss of revenue and goodwill, while Siegel's racked up more than $100,000 in, quote, unlawful sales. After leaving court that day, hopeful that the injunction that shuttered his business on Sundays would be lifted, he went straight to a Central Avenue store. Siegel's store was massive and sold a little bit of everything, from clothes, toys, ammunition, hardware, and food. But when he arrived at the store, a short time later, he was distressed to see thick black smoke and flames ripping through the building. Meyer Siegel immediately dropped his head into his hands and began to weep. The store had been open for business when the fire started. Some customers had reported seeing a black, sticky substance seeping out of the fluorescent lights, followed by sparks. Customers and employees were all evacuated, but the fire grew quickly and proved difficult to fight. In addition to fire crews from Dover, firefighters from several surrounding communities were called to assist as well. Their work was slowed by the large and growing crowd of spectators who gathered by the hundreds to watch the building burn, despite efforts by police to move people away from the scene. It was also reported that low water pressure hampered the firefighters' work, a claim the mayor and city manager refuted, adding that a new well at Willen Pond had just been built and the Garrison Hill Reservoir was only 500 yards away. The fire's ferocity, which generated an enormous amount of heat, burned through and melted firefighters' hose lines, blew out the building's large glass plate windows, and caused ammunition and paint cans to explode. The intense fire also burned through the lead sheathing of phone lines and poles, cutting phone service for Dover, Somersworth, and Rochester. As firefighters worked for hours to contain the blaze, the last item to burn was a new sign advertising the store's most recent sale, which boasted a huge inventory of new stock valued at more than $75,000. Exhausted after several hours, firefighters were finally able to put down the blaze. Ray McKinney, a Dover firefighter, was taken to the Wentworth Hospital, now Wentworth Douglas Hospital, to be treated for smoke inhalation. The damage to the store was estimated at $250,000, well over $1 million today, and a complete loss. It would be 2 years later, in August 1958, before the store would reopen. Sadly, just a week after the store opened for business again, thieves sawed through the roof of the building and broke into a safe, making away with $4,000 in cash. The theft, though, wouldn't deter Meyer Siegel, whose reopened store would thrive and expand in the coming years, and was open for business on Sundays.
Thanks for listening to the Dover Download this week. If you like what you heard, subscribe through your favorite podcast aggregator. And if you have something you want to hear a topic on, let us know. Finally, this is just one of the many ways we share information about the city of Dover. You can subscribe to the Dover Download's email newsletter every week, or other newsletters that we have, by going to the City of Dover homepage, www.dover.nh.gov. Have a great week.